All right, so I'm going to welcome my next guest. I'm going to take back the screen here and share my screen. All right, so I think we have next up is Nicole Smith, my good friend and an awesome person all around, Nicole Smith from ClassLink. And I know they've been doing unbelievable work right now, probably busier than almost anybody we know, just getting schools on board with being able to have probably 8 million students suddenly be able to access everything they're supposed to be able to access overnight. So Nicole, it's so good to have you again. You look awesome.
I look nothing like either of these pictures. I will tell you that right now. Let me turn on my video real fast so I can say hi to everyone. Thank you so much. We are excited to be back, excited to be talking to people, and I appreciate your kind introduction, Leilani. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I apologize. I'm like, full transparency, I'm in a hotel and they're knocking on the door trying to get me out of the room. I'm like, I have 30 more minutes. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So what I want to talk a little bit about today are, of course, some of the trends that we've been hearing with our district partners. And many of you I've talked to before. Some of you are partner districts, but it's the same thing. These challenges with, we were able to do some awesome stuff over the last 18 months, and really kudos to IT departments who I feel were a little bit of some unsung heroes in what they were able to accomplish over the last year in making sure that there was access for everyone, rolling out amazing number of devices, Wi-Fi, hotspots, all those things. But then came the challenge of making sure that students were engaged. And some of the things that we've already been talking a little bit about this afternoon on making sure that accounts and things are provisioned appropriately for the user so that they can be able to get those tools that they need to do things. So with that being said, I feel like our resiliency was definitely tested. Just when we feel like there's a little bit of a break and a little bit of a bright spot, another challenge is thrown our way. But it's exciting to see how districts and individuals are rising to meet these challenges. There's a lot of barriers that we have had to overcome. But without a doubt, my most favorite part of the last year was to see the creativity, seeing everyone coming together, the opportunity to really refocus, to evolve, some of the great things that Stacy was just talking about on how creative I feel like we've been able to be now and really kind of break some of those traditional molds, really giving a chance for change and progress, and I think a chance to really sing the praises of some of these unsung heroes. Some of the challenges and things that we hear when we talk to the districts and we talk to especially IT and curriculum departments is just all these different competing interests and being able to juggle these needs. We need to make things as streamlined as possible. We need to make it as easy for them to access it. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we need to make sure that it is done in a very secure fashion, that data privacy and security standards are being adhered to, and that you guys are being given the analytics into what is going on, who's accessing what, how much time is being spent in these resources, is learning taking place, is engagement happening. So it's really difficult to juggle all those different pieces. Now, I've thrown this slide up before, and the number hasn't really changed, but I'm going to ask if anyone is on here. If you happen to know what this number is and represents, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'll give you guys just a minute to see if anyone remembers what this number is. But it is, I'm not seeing anything, 163 applications. So what that 163 represents is the number of average applications we are assisting our district and institution partners with the very first year of implementing. So ClassLink, we are in all 50 states. We have over 15 million unique users. And this is the number of average applications that we are helping all of those district partners and schools with. So 163 is a lot of applications to manage all those pieces that we were talking about. And then on top of that, there was a study released in 2018 from Bright Bytes that showed that on average, less than 30% of purchased licenses are actually used. And then almost 98% of those aren't even used intensively with the means of which they were purchased. And then that final barrier and challenge being, like I mentioned, the data security and privacy. So this is a map that anyone can go to. It's k12cybersecure.com/map. And if you go here, there's different views, but you will be able to see and to track all of the hacks that have hit K-12 institutions in the past year and across time. And these colors represent different type of attacks, whether it was ransomware or phishing attacks. But as you can see, the problem is widespread. And so I share all this with you to kind of set the stage of how does one meet all of these competing needs. And really, there's something called interoperability. And interoperability is a way of saying everything plays nicely together. And that is what ClassLink is trying to do. So we are a solution that handles the entire life cycle of digital resources from the very first day as they're being onboarded and making sure that everything is automated and ready day one to the very last day as a user transitions out of the district. How is everything handled from, like I mentioned, the access pieces to even creating those accounts and making sure that those tools are ready to go. Now, there was another study more recently done just last year from projectunicorn.org that shows that in the survey that they did, an average school district accesses close to 550 applications monthly. So you'll start to see this need to make sure that everything works together in a seamless fashion to be able to maximize on those tools and on that access. And so one of the ways this is done is with a tool like ClassLink. And so ClassLink, I joke that we are one tool to rule them all, but it is our way of making sure that we are handling in that interoperable fashion all those different pieces that the different end users need to access. So your students and your teachers, even your staff, they're going to see a single sign-on portal that is individualized all the way down to the individual level of the different resources and applications that they need to access. And then all of that is channeling the usage analytics into, again, times being spent in these resources, is there active engagement going on? And then on the back end side, something for IT to streamline the account creation and provisioning there to make sure that's being done in that secure fashion. And then we have things like a free parent portal and a public portal that will house data sharing agreements, privacy policies that enables any user with the URL to go to and see what's approved, what's under review, what's not approved, and why. So think of it as kind of an online digital catalog for those different resources being used there. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead to this really quickly. So I want to spend a moment talking specifically about security and privacy standards. Now, every district that I talk to, most schools, they do a fantastic job of making sure that their vendors have signed the federal and state pledges. Something that you'll want to make sure that you're doing as well in your best practices is asking exactly how they adhere to that. And ClassLink is one of the leaders in the industry when it comes to data security and privacy standards. So we do things like quarterly internal and external penetration testing done by professional hackers there on Wall Street, and then annual audits like iKeepSafe.org, which is specifically for how we handle data for K-12 students. And then things that others in the industry aren't doing yet. You tend to see more in the finance industry. I know Gaggle is a company that just for the first year is doing ISO, so we're super excited about that. And we hope to see more EdTech leaders doing this as well, but it is our way of being accredited and showing that we are truly doing everything that we say that we do up here in these pledges. And then things specifically for cyber insurance. Not only does ClassLink have a very robust cyber insurance policy, but we also make sure that we have the different features that are required by cyber insurance policies for school districts to be able to protect, right, in the event of a hack or ransomware or those types of things. I'm not going to go into this because I think it's kind of the wrong audience, but I just want to flash it up. I think there are a few people who are on here that this will make sense to, but these are some of those different multi-factor authentication options in ClassLink to make sure that we are adhering to that. So I'm going to change directions just a little bit here. And I want to talk specifically about the single sign-on portal and kind of the back end there with access in that. So one thing that I wasn't anticipating that really came out, one of the findings that came out really loud and clear last year was one of the number one reasons that school districts were reaching out to ClassLink to move forward was actually at the request of parents. Parents, right? We're home with our students. We're becoming the instructor and we're responsible for making sure that our kids are accessing the tools. Parents were frustrated with having to manage usernames and passwords, for there not being one place that they could go to access everything. It was very confusing. It was difficult to communicate with parents. It was difficult to find where it was located and how to log in. And I wasn't prepared for the wave of school districts who were coming to me and saying it was the number one request at our board meeting. Our board has tasked us, right, with finding a single sign-on portal that can handle these things. So what I'd like to do is just show a quick video. Leilani, jump in if you can't hear the sound, but I think I've got it so that it plays well on just a quick introduction from all viewpoints on how ClassLink can work in the district. I'm going to go ahead and go full screen here. And let me go into my sharing options and share my sound. And let's also make sure we've got that optimized for a video clip. All right, so let's hope this works.
Kids and teachers are taking 30 seconds to find a certain app and managing those. There wasn't a centralized place to go to find those applications and sign on.
Because we didn't have a single location of where everything was configured, we sort of had to piece all the information together.
How could we recapture that class time and assist in making the sign-on process more natural and more fluid?
It wasn't until ClassLink that we found a solution that really worked for everything, to have one place that they log into where everything that they need and are using in their classroom is right there in front of them.
Our kids only have to remember one password.
They just go to one place, click, and ClassLink does the rest.
Do you know how nice it is to be able to teach instead of, I left my binder at home so I don't have my login sheets.
It's effortless, it's easy, it's organized.
Ultimately, that's what we're about, just making sure that we give the kids time to do what they need to do and aren't frustrating teachers.
We have that power in our pocket now. At home, our teachers and administrators, they're still able to access all of their district files.
The ClassLink engineers and help desk, they've been with us every step of the way.
If it's an app that needs customization, they actually worked with ClassLink to develop an SSO process so that they could be roster compliant and hop on board because they wanted to be with us.
One of the things that's really important for us is to analyze if we're going to renew an app or not. And so we look at the usage reports and we go, okay, which apps are we not seeing usage on? If the usage is low, maybe the choice is not to renew.
It has saved us easily hundreds of thousands of dollars in development time, staff time.
ClassLink removes barriers. And so we can focus on what we need to do, which is work on innovation and creativity and learning.
Grammarly helps you work more efficiently, which makes accomplishing your work.
There we go. All righty. So you heard a little bit in that video there on the single sign-on platform. If I have time at the end, I'll jump into it live, but I wanted to emphasize some of the differences from some of the other tools out there. So you heard me mention earlier that ClassLink is personalized. It's a one-stop shop, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. And so we have the capability of pushing out those programs and file folders, really anything, out onto the dashboard by building, by course, by class, an individual user, automated and federated via the roster server, by profiles, by 80 groups, and Google OUs. And so that is how we can really get that clean portal for each individual user. We also have the capacity to turn on our additional library, but our library is done in a very different fashion from some of the other tools. So a user cannot add an application that has not been vetted and approved by the district. And so that way we give you the capability to take a look at those programs, approve those programs before they are signed out or used, and make sure that they've been vetted and they meet data security and privacy standards. There's also capabilities in there for teachers to go in and see their teacher classroom, see in-depth analytics on the students that they're working with, reset their passwords, be able to see exactly where they're spending their time in the different programs. There is a communication tool. I actually just finished a very long meeting right before this one with the school district in San Diego County who was frustrated with the current tool that they were using because it allowed parents to message teachers, teachers to message individual students, students to message each other. The ClassLink messaging tool that's built into the portal only allows teachers to do one large announcement to everyone in the class and to have discussion threads and discussion boards that are tracked in the analytics so that it can circumvent any of those hiccups or inappropriateness that might come back with one-to-one messaging. So kind of some of those differences with the approach there with single sign-on. We also provide a bunch of different ways for users to sign in. So this is also something that is rare in other tools. That ClassLink is the only one that has these different sign-in methods. And so what it looks like when we do jump to the actual sign-in page, I'll show you guys a couple examples here of some of our partner districts in here. I'm just going to move this so I can get into it. So you'll notice everyone's sign-in page looks a little bit different and they allow their users different sign in. You can choose that by AD group or profile. So everything in ClassLink is configurable. So if you want your staff to sign in with Active Directory credentials and students to sign in with QR codes, you're able to push that out just for those groups. We also have a self-service password reset capability there to take off that heavy load off of teachers and IT departments if that's something that the district desires to be turned on. So here's Poway. I pulled them up, a great partner. Appreciate Jennifer and her team there. But you'll see again, everyone's looks completely different. And then once they log in, I'm going to go ahead and log in with my Google credentials. I mentioned that you have that capability of adding additional security. So multi-factor is a new thing that is mandatory in cyber insurance policies to keep people safe. We have something as simple as pick an image, or you can also turn on mobile authentication apps, use things like Duo, YubiKeys. We have a lot of different options to provide security to specific groups there. Now, I want to switch over into analytics, talking about engagements and measuring those uses, the things that we do to provide insight into what's going on there. And I mentioned the teacher console. That is something that teachers can access. It's going to go in and from your student information system, we're going to be able to pull what classes, the students that are in those classes, and then any programs that have been assigned specifically to those courses. So this is where teachers can come in and do those things that I mentioned, like push out announcements or the discussion boards. If IT allows it, they can also assign applications to students in their class, but again, it's only going to be from district vetted resources. So if that's turned on, I can add in real time and remove programs for students in my classes. I can also see and monitor their logins in real time and how much time they're spending in the different resources. So this is an example of a class view. I can also come into the login summary and see that for all my classes. So an example of some of those. We also have a new update. I'm going to jump back into my deck over here that we pushed out in July. So typically the ClassLink Analytics have always been whatever resources are launched from the ClassLink Launchpad. And again, we did that because of data security and privacy standards, especially with not every district at the time being a one-to-one environment. But a lot of things changed over the last 18 months. Most districts have some type of one-to-one initiative. And to accommodate that, we rolled out Analytics Plus. Analytics Plus job is to capture usage from anywhere. And ClassLink is the only tool that can also gather usage on native apps. So what that looks like is the capability to come in and to track those trends, to see exactly how many times things have been launched, total time spent in those programs, to measure engagements, how much time is being spent in there. And then we have things called sessions that monitor, intense forms of engagement in there. There's also the capability, if I come in, I think I've got it in this one, I'm looking for it, how much is being spent. So not only do you need to measure engagement, you need to measure investment. There were a lot of tools that were purchased last year. I heard that literally we were the wild, wild west of just a rush to get tools in the hands of teachers and students. We weren't prepared, right, to have everything go all remote. And there was a lot of money that was given to schools and institutions to be able to pay for these. But a lot of that is one-time funds. And so districts are having to go back and to decide which of those tools are you going to use, right? Which of those are truly meeting the needs, and it's going to have to be paid for sometime. So when those funding run out, are you going to be willing to budget, right, the resources necessary to continue that tool? And so that's why we pulled in these cost measurements here. Sorry about that. Being able to track how much is being spent on how many licenses, and then the number of unique users. And then when the report is exported, also being able to show how much is the program costing per activated license, and being able to pull that information there. So that's some of the tools that we have, again, when it comes to your end users, being able to access those programs. There's a lot of things on the back end as well. I'm just going to highlight it really quickly. We talk a lot about rostering and account provisioning, and that is the capability of being able to automate the accounts for all the different resources that are being used at the district and in the classroom. And that is done through our ClassLink roster server. ClassLink has a different approach compared to some of the other tools out there, and that is each district is given their own individual hosted server on Amazon Web Services. That way your information is not commingled with all the districts that we partner with, and you are in control of what programs are added and what pieces of information are shared with the vendors and publishers, and what you want to withhold and what you want to keep private. And then all of that, of course, comes with the analytics on who's accessing what's being shared, audit logs, and the things that are necessary to report there for IT. So that's a lot that I kind of threw at you guys. Just wanted to introduce a few things, plant some seeds. If anyone has any questions, I'll pause in just a moment and we'll share. I'll just kind of.
Yeah, Nicole, sure. I think Ellen Palmer has a question.
Of course, my friend Ellen. Ellen's friends with everyone. Who's not friends with Ellen? I worked with Ellen for years in a past life. Huh, Ellen? Doing Casey prep.
Yes, Casey prep.
Those high schools in Pomona. Ellen, what can I answer for you?
You were talking about, ensuring that a district only makes apps that have been vetted available within ClassLink.
Yes.
Does ClassLink have resources that a district could leverage to help with that vetting process, like a rubric or maybe a research-based rubric that you're familiar with out there?
That's a great question, Ellen. So ClassLink ourselves, we don't have one because we have a fine line to walk, right? Part of it is allowing access to resources. We work in 20 countries. We're also in higher ed, and there's different standards depending on what state, not even talking about what country, but what state they're in. But what we do have is a bunch of rubrics from partner districts that we would be happy to share or to make those connections with you. So I know there's a bunch in Texas who've done some amazing work, literally vetting thousands and thousands of applications, some resources up in Washington and Oregon as well, who really do their due diligence in tracking that. And I'd be happy to connect you with those.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. What other questions, Leilani? Anyone else have any questions?
I don't see any other questions, but just tell me how you guys are doing. It must have been kind of a whirlwind for all of you at ClassLink.
I think the ClassLink team grew at about 100%. So I can tell you we are just about 200 employees now. It has been crazy. As you can imagine, a tool like ClassLink became a must have, not a gosh, this would be nice to have. So you'll see my slide up here with some of these one-stop shop wins, but really being able to pull it all together in one place was exactly what districts needed. And one of the benefits was, especially for California, I feel like we have some funding challenges that we don't see with other states in the US. For the first time ever, I've had districts that, we were talking to for 3+ years who called me back and said, Nicole, I finally have the money, right? So I'm glad that our legislature and government did what they needed to get funding in the hands of districts to be able to roll out, Chromebooks and hotspots and get the tools and things that they needed to in place to be able to meet the needs of students and teachers and really all staff. I mean, we had district partners. I know I'm preaching to the choir. We couldn't get on site, right? And the school year had to be closed out, and HR and finance could not get to their desktop to access the things that they needed to do. And ClassLink has a tool that is part of the single sign-on solution that allows access to those shared network file folders without VPN. So it was a lifesaver, for districts who maybe they had other tools that they didn't need for pieces, but they didn't have anything that utilized that. And they were able to bring it, together under one wheelhouse. So again, kudos to all of you. I know I'm preaching to the choir. It's been a crazy time for everyone, but I've loved seeing how everyone has, come together to be able to achieve great things. And I know you guys are going to hear some awesome things from Poway tomorrow. But really, we couldn't do it without the districts that we partner with. It's been amazing.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I have one other question, and it has to it comes off this whole idea that time and space went through a big mutation for almost every school in America. Kids that don't want to be on campus or can't be on campus, and other ones that can. And then we want flexible schedules like Classical Academy. Stacy was talking about this morning. My child can only be there until noon every day. So have you seen a surge in trying to link in tools that are master schedule oriented?
So we're starting to see that a lot with student information systems, bringing that about. As you know, California tends to be a very heavy ARIES student information system. And we had a lot of districts on ARIES that were not using the master schedule function of ARIES, and a huge shuffle, right, to bring that about and to accommodate and to pull that in. So we're definitely seeing, I had districts who almost never used an LMS, and now everyone has an LMS, even if it's just Google Classrooms, right? So we're absolutely seeing a huge swing to be able to accommodate and bring in those types of tools and encourage interoperability with those.
That's awesome. Okay, good. I'm glad I got to ask you that. Well,
yeah, of course.
Any other comments that you want to make about anything that you're seeing unique?
I feel like every district, honestly, every district has some type of unique capability or, something really out of the box that they are doing. I had some slides, but I decided not to share them with some of those best practices and things that districts are doing. it's hard to say, you know, this is the one thing, because everyone has like different needs, right? And different things that they're doing. But really, I think it's just everyone's open-mindedness and the willing to try things out. The other trends that I'm seeing, I'll give them a little shout out. They're not on here, but Desert Sands Unified School District. I had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago, and they had to pivot in the most amazing time frame ever, like literally in a couple days, because they had this ginormous influx of thousands of students who dropped in-person learning to go to remote and to be able to meet those needs. And really, it was like all hands on deck. Everyone was teaching virtual classes, and kudos to the districts who are trying to now give that as a permanent option, right? It doesn't have to be the brick and mortar traditional schedule. So that's one of the biggest trends that we've seen, is kind of like was talked about earlier, being able to accommodate both. There are some that want that social interaction and to be able to have that traditional experience. And there's others that realize that it's fantastic to just do school for a couple hours a day and just work at their own pace and not be bogged down with all the fluff. That's probably the number one trend that I'm seeing.
Yeah, we're hearing that too. And I'm glad you commented on that, because I know there's been a loss of achievement in many schools, but some of those kids excelled, like they loved it. So it's, it's
right. Just that whole one size doesn't fit all. So it's great to hear what everyone's doing. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate your time and always excited to be on this. Take care.
Thank you, Nicole.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.